I don't really like looking at jewelry. It has no interest to me, right? And I've written about jewelry for 35 years. To look at it is not interesting to me at all, right? I just find the jewelry industry just very interesting, and I'm sure there's plenty of other interesting industries too. For whatever reason, it's as they told me in the beginning, and I didn't believe them. It's like the Roach Motel. You check in, you don't check out.
Welcome back to The Materialist. I am Mark Bridge, the founder and CEO of At Present, Matchmaker to Extraordinary Jewelry, and I am your host. In our series of special dispatches from Las Vegas, the Super Bowl of jewelry, I am sitting here with Rob Bates, vision and voice of the jewelry industry, longtime news editor of JCK, who has recently gone off and hung his own shingle and is now a Substacker independent journalist. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm curious, from your perspective, what is the biggest issue facing the jewelry industry today?
I would definitely have to say, at least since I cover the diamond industry, I would have to say lab-grown diamonds. It's all anybody wants to talk about. It's all anybody's obsessed with. It's completely disrupted the industry. So I would say that. I think it's something that probably people should have seen coming, that it would have taken off the way it has, but it's definitely thrown the industry for a bit of a loop. So I would say that's big. And I think in general, you always want more customers, you want more demand, but actually this has been a pretty good year for jewelry. You look at things like LVMH and Kering and Richemont, all their jewelry brands are doing extremely well. And even like independent jewelers are having a pretty good year. So for whatever weird reason, jewelry seems to be holding up more than other luxury goods. And we obviously have the famed K-shaped economy, so it's very much concentrated on the high end. But it's actually been a pretty good year for jewelry. But I would definitely say people in the mined or natural diamond industry are hurting, and I think that's a lot because of lab-grown.
Where has that conversation progressed? Because it has been a conversation for a decade, and then certainly at fever pitch for the last 5 years. Is the conversation different today than it was 5 years ago?
I wish I could say it was. I think that has it progressed? No, not really. I think it's, for whatever reason, the two sides like to fight with each other, and it's not one side picking on the other, or they both kind of take shots at each other constantly, and there's no real reason for it. Both things can coexist. I think they think of themselves as competitors. I think a lot of some of the big lab-grown companies are basically tech companies, and they're basically in it to develop diamond for material use, and they just, hey, we'll just sell gems and make some money and then pour all the money into R&D. I think the natural diamond industry has realized that it has to make its case and sell its product in a way it hasn't had before. It used to be, when I first started in the business, and I'm sure when you did too, people would go and there would be like you'd go for an engagement ring and you go to 4 jewelers, right? And they would all sell you a diamond engagement ring, right? And they wouldn't even sell you a colored stone engagement ring.
It was a 1 carat round diamond, a VS2G.
That would be like you're really shaking things up. You do a Lazar Kaplan or a Hearts on Fire. But basically it was all a diamond engagement ring. And now people have a choice, right? And people are making their own decisions, and more people are doing colored stones, and some people are doing lab-grown diamonds. So it's something that never had a competitor. All of a sudden has a competitor, and you hope in the long term it will make the industry stronger, because it's good. You have competition and you grow and you learn and you develop. But
is that happening?
No, it has not been happening, but hopefully it will eventually happen. I think that, again, I know you're familiar with a lot of this history. I don't know if your listeners are, but for a long time, De Beers was fundamentally a monopoly and a cartel. It's not anymore. So they used to do the overarching advertising for the entire business. And at some point in the 2000s or 2010, the monopoly structure fell apart. So now they have about 33% of the business. So they were the ones who really developed diamonds as an engagement ring product, as a luxury item, and they spent a ton of money on this. And when they stopped doing that, it didn't hurt right away, but eventually it hurt. Because even your Coca-Cola, you still have to advertise, right? Your McDonald's, every human being in the world knows McDonald's, but they still have to advertise. Even though most people know diamonds, when they stopped advertising, it went down. So the idea that you need some kind of category driving advertising, I think people accept that, and that you have to spend money on it. And probably, in a way, it's in many ways like a historic kind of, it's just how the industry has typically been, in that people rely on De Beers or a De Beers-like entity to promote the product of diamonds, rather than, if you're perfume, you don't say, hey, I want the big perfume company to advertise for me, right? Different brands advertise for themselves. So it's a matter of a industry that historically sold an undifferentiated product and has counted on this other entity to advertise this undifferentiated product, and now is forced, when that entity stopped advertising, sales went down, and now that entity has to kind of get back in the game again, or it's going to be screwed too.
The interesting thing to me is that the competitor rode the coattails of the category advertising.
Right.
They said, this is the same thing. All right, demand was created. Everybody's living off the fat of the land, and we're going to do the same thing. And everybody said, no, but our thing is different. And they did a pretty good job of alighting that, it felt like.
I think because they didn't have this historical baggage of one big company advertising for them, a lot of these companies they were smaller companies, and because they had this tech angle of lab-grown diamonds, and it's sexy and it's new, it's a quote-unquote disruptor, they were able to get a lot of VC funds, and they all hired PR firms. So for a long time, my email, I get twice a week, some new lab-grown company would come up, and they would all basically say the same thing. So in a way, it's like, instead of one overarching company doing it, they had a whole bunch of companies doing it, which in many ways is a better system.
But they weren't doing anything that was actually different. They were selling in the same way, and they were just saying, oh, wait, but ours has these two slight differences. It's cheaper, and then they tried to greenwash it a little bit.
Yeah, cheaper is huge, right?
Totally.
Cheaper is, nothing beats cheaper, right? That's the oldest selling trick in the book. So
the use case was still the same thing. Buy a big sparkly diamond for the same moments that you were buying before.
They took advantage of the industry's kind of historic issues and said, okay, yeah, just put this in here, and it's cheaper and it's better, and nobody can tell the difference, and you'll be fine, right? And that's it. But there was a very kind of disheartening and surprising lack of creativity, considering they can grow in any shape, they can grow in any color, they can do all sorts of things that you can't do with a natural diamond. And I think that's what people were expecting them to do in the beginning, and they never really did that. So I think there was a definite lack of creativity. Just like, hey, it's just like any kind of discounter, basically. Like, hey, we're the same, but cheaper.
You treated the category as a commodity. We can produce the commodity for less, so we're going to win.
I know you had Sally Morrison on, and some of the people who are, I think, very sharp and very in tune with the market. One of the things they'll say is that by allowing diamonds to become a commodity, these kind of comparison shop things, by taking the quote-unquote romance out of it, you have kind of opened the door to this kind of stuff, right? Because you just made this into something that's a lot of numbers and a lot of letters and stuff like that, that isn't really what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be this kind of nice, beautiful symbol of love.
But it's the tail wagging the dog a little bit, isn't it? And what other space do the components of the product define the product? We talked about a diamond engagement ring, but basically it was a diamond, and it happened to be sitting in a ring. But when I buy a handbag, I'm not thinking about buying a piece of leather.
but you might buy a leather bag, right? So I can't speak for every space, but I think it's just the diamond was something that was exciting to people. It was the draw. It was the brand.
Yeah.
The diamond was the brand. Now, again, I think if you had to do it over again and you had to construct an industry from scratch, you would say, hey, this kind of diamond is this. And you do have a lot of retail brands, whether it's Tiffany or Cartier or Benbridge or what have you. So I think it is possible to do more with a diamond brand than just what people are doing. But right now, the focus is on whether the diamond is natural or lab grown, not whether it's. Because if you go to Tiffany or Cartier or what have you, it's going to be a natural diamond, and that's just it.
But there you are buying a Tiffany or a Cartier product featuring a diamond.
Yes, correct. Tiffany diamond ring.
Right.
And I think, again, one of the problems with the industry historically is that while it did advertise its product, it advertised its product as a generic product rather than as a branded product, rather than as anything that was anything different. So then when people said, okay, I want a 2-carat GVS diamond ring, all of a sudden they went online and saw grids and stuff like that and comparison shopped rather than just found something that was beautiful to them. And I think that's really where it went wrong, is that it became this very kind of scientific thing that I think a lot of people personally didn't necessarily enjoy. It became about, like, how does your ring measure up? And it became less about, hey, here's something that's really beautiful. My wife has a ring with a diamond and 2 sapphires. I don't know how big the diamond is. I don't care. It's a beautiful ring.
And you both work in the jewelry business.
Yes, correct. Yes.
You have spent decades covering diamonds and jewelry.
Yes.
Why has this world remained intellectually interesting to you?
That's a good question. I think, first of all, I like the fact that it is, in a weird way, a community that it's a business, and there's no question it's a business. There are people I've known, like I've probably known you like 20 years, right? There are people I've known since I was 26, 27. That's nice, right? You grow up with these people. I ended up marrying somebody in the industry. I like that aspect of it, that there is a community feel to it, that it's not just people doing business with each other. It's business, there's family involved, and there's people who've known each other for years, and it goes back generations. My grandfather was in the business. He died long before I got into it, so I kind of had that connection to it. There's always some issue going on. There's always something. There's always a crisis. Always in some kind of weird crisis, or there's some big issue, or there's some big controversy. It's always in flux, and whether it's lab grown or conflict diamonds or tariffs now, or there's usually always some things to, and never mind all the fact that if you want dirt, there's plenty of dirt in this industry, as in any industries. There's just a lot to it. It's international. It's all over the world. It has this huge, long history. I don't even really care about the fashion aspect of it. I don't really like looking at jewelry. It has no interest to me, right? And I've written about jewelry for 35 years, and to look at it is not interesting to me at all, right? And I've never been involved with the fashion aspect of it. So I think it's just the community and the controversies and the fact that you get weird insight into how the world works, right? So now I've dealt with tech companies. I've dealt with people in Washington, D.C. I've dealt with people in Hollywood. I've dealt with celebrities and those kind of people. And I've dealt with international politics. You just get these kind of very little interesting insights into various segments of the world. And I have to say, most of them are not flattering. You're like, okay, jewelry people aren't perfect, but some of these people are real pieces of work. But I think it just touches upon so many things, so many people, so many countries, so many lives. It's something that everybody has, right? And it's also this kind of small, intimate community. So I don't know, it's nothing I would have chosen. I would say I didn't expect to be in it, but I think I worked for a year at a toy industry trade publication. And that industry was like very corporate, right? There weren't that many, even this is like the 90s. And even back then, there weren't that many small toy stores, right? And now I think they're all basically gone. So the fact that I can talk to people who own businesses, who are CEOs, who, again, that I've known for years, it's just, to me, I like that aspect of it, that it's less corporate than some of the other fields out there, certainly less than toys. And I certainly understand toys better than jewelry, right?
As a consumer?
Yeah, because I was like, oh yeah, toys, that'd be awesome to cover, right? But it's just like a lame industry. It's just, there was Toys R Us. At the time, there was Toys R Us, but it was like just Walmart. It's just Hasbro and Walmart. It was just very corporate and very, I think, product driven, and there was less issues. I just find the jewelry industry just very interesting. And I'm sure there's plenty of other interesting industries too. For whatever reason, it's as they told me in the beginning, and I didn't believe them, it's like the Roach Motel. You check in, you don't check out.
In addition to your journalism, you have become a novelist.
Yes, I'm now a retired novelist.
Congratulations on your full arc career. The novels are all set in this world as well.
Yeah.
It seems to me that a lot of the topic that you keep returning to is the sort of idea of what is real. Do you think that's right? And what does real mean in this world today?
I would say definitely the last novel, which dealt with lab grown, definitely dealt with that subject. And it's for some of the novels I read, classic work. So like for the last one, I read like a lot of classic sci-fi and stuff like that. And definitely like the whole question of what is real, obviously been going on people have been talking about for decades. It's amazingly relevant now with AI and everything. I can't say what's real or not. Everything is real, right? We all live, we all exist. I would say what matters is what kind of person you are and the impact you have in your family and the impact you have on people. There's going to be a certain artifice in this world for whatever reason.
What is, if we're going back to this idea of a commodity and what is in column A and column B, what is the job to be done by a diamond? And does one solution solve it differently than another?
I can answer that intellectually because I know what jobs diamonds do in the real world, or for most people.
Start there, because that's interesting.
Yeah, for me, I don't really own diamonds and I don't really care, right? But I would say that, for whatever reason, people have a desire to express wealth. They have a desire to express love. How do people express love? They do it through candies and flowers and diamonds. I would say that diamonds are considered a way to both express love as a commitment, and it has some kind of origins in dowries and things like that. I think they're a way to express commitment, and they're also a way to express wealth. And you saw that with the bling phenomenon and all the rappers who wore a lot of diamonds. So I think that's the kind of quote unquote job that diamonds have historically done.
If I want to show my partner that I really love her and that I'm really rich and that I really value her, does the diamond still work, or has that message been polluted?
No, I think it works. As much as the industry's been disrupted, plenty of natural diamonds are being sold. So yeah, I think it still works. And I think definitely for certain people, a natural diamond has more resonance than a lab-grown diamond. You can argue with that, but I think that's because it is more expensive, because it has the association with nature. I'm always been interested in the social effects of diamonds. And I think the popular association with the social effects of diamonds is primarily negative, blood diamonds. But as I'm sure you're aware, and as I've been hearing for the last couple of days, they do provide a lot of people with jobs. They have made Botswana into a relatively prosperous nation until lab-grown screwed the whole thing up. I do appreciate the fact that at their best, diamonds can truly have a positive effect on some of the world's poorest people. So that's something, when I think about what diamonds mean to me, I don't care. I don't wear fancy watches. You look at my suit, it's not like the
You
world's
look very
nicest.
nice. You're better dressed than I am.
Yeah. To me, diamonds at their best do help people with jobs in Botswana, in Namibia. And I think that's something I am passionate about, and I feel strongly about that. I think there is a reason for this industry to exist. Now, have diamonds been associated with some very bad things? That's unquestionable too. In the end, they're just an object, and objects can be used for good and for bad.
But narratives are complicated. I
Right.
remember thinking about this about 10 years ago. I was at the Jwaneng mine
Yeah.
in Botswana. And I remember staring at this vast expanse. This is a
Right.
giant open pit mine. I don't know. Have you ever been there?
Yes.
Yeah. And you're like, this is a mile in diameter.
Yeah.
Is inarguably a big effing hole.
Yeah.
And as someone who thinks about themselves as a modern progressive, you look at this and you say, is it good to have despoliated the earth this way? Everything else being equal, it's probably better if there's not a giant hole in the ground. But then I'm looking more at the hole and I'm thinking this hole and what has come out of it has provided education and healthcare and modern infrastructure and supported the growth of a liberal democracy in a place where those things are not common. And you think about the equation a little bit differently. Am I willing to trade that hole for millions of people to have a more secure and healthful life? I think I probably do, but that doesn't stick very well on a bumper.
Look, we're in Las Vegas, which is like this
The most organic and natural place in the
yeah,
world.
like this weird place in the desert, right? They decided to put all these like disgusting buildings in the middle of a desert, right? And
That all claim that they're LEED certified, which is also something that boggles my mind.
But we just accept it, and it's not even a very nice industry. Gambling is not. There's some good entertainment here. So, but if people want to make money here, that's fine. I understand everybody has to make a living. So, yeah, I think that you could say, oh, a mine is bad, but you don't say, oh, a city is bad. But they're all built by man, right? You don't have to have Las Vegas. You don't have to have half the things that we have.
And arguably, cities are better for resource utilization than living in rural areas. You live
Yeah.
in New York City. It requires a lot less heat per resident to heat an apartment building than it does a single family house. Nobody ever walks around Manhattan and go, wow, this is sure a green place when there's piles of garbage on the sidewalk. But objectively, it is.
Yeah, I do not drive. So there you go.
No, exactly. You recently launched the Jewelry Wire,
Yes.
which is a pretty material shift for you. Tell us what was happening in the world of trade journalism and what motivated that shift.
So I don't want to go into everything. I'd worked for JCK for 28 years. I'd worked for National Jeweler for 5.5 years. So I'd worked for a whole bunch of trade magazines. And at some point, you just think, okay, I'm nearly 60 years old. I'm going to be 60 in September, right?
Worth celebrating.
Yes, we're celebrating. But you think, okay, so I could just sit and do the JCK newsletter for another couple of years, and it was fine. I liked it. I enjoyed it. Or I could just try to do something that's different and a little bit more interesting and a little bit kind of more in my own voice, right? And again, there were other factors. You also think, okay, how long is even something like JCK, which is 150 years old, does it have a long-term future? Now, I hope it does. I believe it does. But we're in a world of great uncertainty. At some point, I just kind of started playing around with the idea that, you know what, maybe it's time for me to do something else. I've only worked in a corporate environment my whole life. I've only worked for companies, and it's been fine. But you think, okay, this is my last shot, right? I'm good. I can't do this at 65. At 59 and a half, I can do it, right? So you think, okay, I'll give it a
the naive
shot.
throes of youth.
Yeah, so I'll give it a shot. And if it doesn't work, I'll either retire early or do something else or figure something else out. But just to me, it just kind of became like, and as I mentioned a little earlier, my father died last year, and he was a biochemist and he was involved with MetPath, which became Quest. So he was kind of one of the early people in that company, right? And I remember at 63, 64, they said goodbye, right? Because that's what happens, right? You work for a company your whole life, and it's just what kind of you expect at this point. And at least he got a lot of Quest diagnostic stock. He got Corning stock. If it happened to me, it would be nothing, right? I just figured, okay, I could do it, and I could either retire or get laid off, or something could happen, or I could just try to do something that is different and a little bit more interesting and fun, and just try it. And it's somebody told me before I did it, I assume you've done startups, right? So I've never done a startup, right? I've never done anything like this or close to this. And this person said, look, yeah, first of all, you're going to have less time with your family, which is unfortunately true, right? And he said,
But at least you'll be more ornery when you're with them.
and you're going to be worried all the time. And there'll be times that you'll wish that you hadn't done it, which I certainly have. But in the end, you're having a new experience and you're getting a little bit of freedom. So I'm still 2 months into it, so I'm still figuring out the lay of the land. But I'm both like horrified that I made this choice, because you look at LinkedIn and I see all these people like, oh, I can't get a job interview. I'm like, I had a secure job that was in a great field where people are dying to get in. And like, I left it, right? Because I decided, okay, I wanted to do something different. And there was one or two things that I wanted to get away from. And it was like that is so stupid of me, right? But on the other hand, it's just like I just felt like it was time for a change, and I think I'll be okay. And it's just a big experiment. I was listening to this podcast about Roald Dahl, and they said one of the reasons he was such a good writer was because he had a lot of interesting experiences in his life. So this has definitely been an interesting experience. So it's only been like 2 months, but I think as much as it has been like very difficult and I've lost a lot of sleep and I've worked really hard, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's hard to imagine me going back to where I was, right? Just because it's just so different. And I feel like I've built something that's different and that I really am proud of. So that's really where I am right now. You're from Seattle. It's a very entrepreneurial culture, right? And I don't really know that many people who are entrepreneurs. My friend's a lawyer, and he's always neurotic about it. But yeah, it just was something I just decided, and I thought about it for months. And I think my wife's like, you should really just do it already. And at some point, I decided, okay, I just going to take the plunge and we'll see what happens.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Really exciting. And you do at some point have the reckoning of, I get one chance to run through this life. And if there are experiences that I want to have, either you have to take advantage of them or you have to say, okay, this is an experience I'm not going to have.
Yeah. I have to say, and being in this in a very entrepreneurial industry, I was really worried that people would think I got fired and that I had to leave. And people have been like very supportive because I think it's their life. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. You start your own thing. Why work for somebody else when you have your own name and you could do your own thing? And we'll see if it works out. I think the economics are we'll have to see. So far it's definitely been interesting, and I've definitely learned a lot. And again, I could have stayed at JCK and taken a lot more naps and worked out a little bit more at the gym. It's good to challenge yourself. As you mentioned, I wrote 4 novels. That was very challenging. And I've done performing, and I was involved in the comedy scene for a long time. So I usually have had something else in my life besides my home life and my job. So this is like my new thing that I've been involved in.
Love it. From a product standpoint, or from the consumer of your product, did you see that there was a space that needed to be filled, or this was a supply-led, all right, this is what I want to do, and we'll see if there's any demand for this?
That's an interesting question, because I've been doing this for a long time, and I think I have a name in the industry. So I think what I bring to it has a certain value. That said, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, it's a great idea." And then after I left, everyone was like, "What's so different about your thing? And what's your USP? And like, how are you going to market yourself? And all the stuff that I probably should have thought through a little bit more before I did. But I did develop. There was this one person who was a designer, and I was kind of asking her what does she want to see in a magazine, and she just started interrogating me and telling me that like, why should I read you? Like, why should anybody support you? And from that, I developed a slogan: "The news you need in just one read," right? Which is like it's the slogan, right? It is whatever. And so I've been it's definitely been supply led, but I'm trying to get it more demand read and just kind of understand what I need to do to make it successful.
I have found that in nearly all situations, the only way out is through. And I have very much gone through the process of I should have known this to begin with.
Yeah.
And how could I have been so stupid as to have not thought through this? And the answer that I have come to is you actually can't confront certain questions in advance. You can't know them, and you can't solve them until you've gotten them wrong 25 times. And so there is both a humbling and a little bit of freedom to being like, yeah, actually, the process is just sort of getting kicked over and over again.
And my background and my trade is being a writer, right? And you ideally a writer, there's a certain purity there, right? There you just are writing to express yourself and because you enjoy the craft. And I had it really, one of the good things about working for a magazine and publication is that they take care of a lot of those issues for you. They tell you what to do and then you do it, right? And I think from my standpoint, marketing and branding and coming up with slogans and stuff like that, I understand it. And I knew I would have to kind of do it, but I didn't realize I would have to do it to the extent that I've had to do it. And it is extremely humbling, right? Because you think, okay, hey, I did this for years and people know me and people are going to follow me. And some people did follow me, but you always need more, right? I think that's, it's forced me to think, okay, this isn't just me writing on a Substack and people paying me for it. It's a business and I got to think more as.
How does that relate to what you write about and the ways in which kind of coverage comes about? You were telling me earlier that you got the first advertiser, which is,
Yes.
it's a little bit like you go into a restaurant and they always frame the first dollar. I remember the first sale that we made at Present. You do these sort of things, you're like, will anybody ever care? And then someone comes out and buys something. Do you get concerned that if a particular party with a particular agenda was sponsoring you, that would change the way you think about it?
Yeah, and I think that was an issue when I was working at a publication also. It's just that you could be like, well, I'm not going to listen to that. You could put yourself above it, and now it's a little closer to home.
But you actually have to own it when
you
own it.
I actually have to think about it. Oh, okay. First of all, I really do think that one of the reasons I liked the subscription model was because where you didn't have to do advertising and stuff like that, but I have done advertising. But I think the idea is to be more independent. Now, I will say that JCK has, for all the years I was there, I would say in just about every instance, they gave me complete freedom and they were really cool and I basically did what I wanted. So I didn't feel that oppressed over there. But you definitely feel freer working for yourself. I think one of the things that writers talk about when they go on their own is that you develop a quote unquote personal brand, right? And that there's the danger of audience capture, right? That you don't want to keep giving people what they want. You want to be provocative. You want to challenge their thinking, not just play to what people want you to say. And the thing is, when you do that, people get upset and they don't like it and they cancel subscriptions and ads and stuff like that. So have
you had that experience yet since you've been doing the Jewelry Wire?
No, not really. No, I've had people get upset with me, but that's nothing new. But are
you covering things in a different way than you would have at JCK? Are there more provocative stances that you've taken or a different combination of articles?
It's more of a personal voice. It's more irreverent as far as the tone and the headlines. Some of the things are pretty similar. It's more personal. Like today, I was writing an article, and it was about a panel I moderated. And I would usually say, panel was moderated by the author. I usually would put that at the end, right? And this time I put the panel was moderated by me. It's more of a personal voice. It's more like I'm putting a lot more opinion into it. So it's just, you want it to be a little different, give it a little personality, just make it something that stands out, because in the end, that's really what you're selling. You're selling your expertise and your take and your ability to analyze, and the fact that you have a certain vision of the world. And I think that's part of it. I think getting news is not easy, and it's something that I've worked hard to do. But I think more important is the ability to put it in context and to analyze it.
We talked about the job to be done for diamonds. What is the job to be done for trade press?
That's a good question. I think ideally a trade press should be something that gives people what they want to know. It's like a community press, right? It's like a hometown press. Hey, it's the whatever East Brunswick, New Jersey, East Brunswick Times, right? It's like it should be part of the community, but it shouldn't be just like, hey, our community's great, everything's wonderful. It should be something like a normal press that has certain adversarial elements and that tells the truth, and that I think for a trade press, you do, especially when you're dealing with mom and pop jewelers, you do want to help people do business better. So I think that's a aspect of it. You do want to help the industry to some extent. You also have to say, look, sometimes things aren't good, sometimes things are good. So I don't think it should be like a cheerleading squad. I think it should be like any kind of journalism at its best, something that kind of stands a little apart and tries to find out what's going on, and sometimes makes people unhappy and shows some unfortunate things, ideally.
What do you think the trade gets wrong?
The jewelry trade gets wrong?
Yeah, either about consumers or about the environment in which they operate.
I think the trade definitely talks to itself to a remarkable extent, right? So, I obviously believe the diamonds have done a good job in Botswana, right? You obviously believe it because we've both seen it, right? Yet, I feel like I'm getting that message over and over. And I think to myself, I don't need this message. I'm on board, right? You don't need to tell me this. So I think sometimes the trade talks to itself, because sometimes it gets those kind of messages, those kind of positive messages, get a perhaps less welcoming reception in the outside world. I think that's one of the dangers of being part of covering any kind of beat, or to some extent you're embedded in the trade. You are, even though I don't sell jewelry, I am pretty much
this is
a
your
member.
world.
Yeah, I
You're a
cover
member of the tribe.
Cover the jewelry industry, right? Think that you have to not, as a trade press person, you have to separate yourself. I think the jewelry industry, honestly, considering it's mostly small companies, and it deals with a lot of esoteric minerals and watches that have these crazy complications, which I can't even bother to learn about. That it manages to get all that information out, and that people still patronize it, I think is pretty good. I think, as I said, as a new entrepreneur, I have a newfound respect for people who do this, because it really is not easy. I do think the trade talks a little bit too much to itself. Obviously, it needs to understand younger people and social media and all this other stuff that's going on. But I think overall, again, jewelry's had a pretty good year. It's had a pretty good couple years, actually. The pandemic was great for jewelry for whatever reasons. It's not a perfect industry by any means, and it can get a little self-congratulatory, and it can be a little incestuous. But I think in general, I think it gets a lot right. It's still here, right? The object of any industry really is to survive, and this one has not only survived, but it's prospered. So I think it gets probably more right than wrong, but everybody gets stuff wrong.
There's plenty on both sides of the ledger.
Yeah.
You mentioned a number of existential challenges that have been faced over the last 25 years. As you look into your crystal ball, are there things that are on the horizon? What are we going to be talking about in 5 and 10 years?
I think one of the things that's been interesting is that so much has happened that you didn't expect. Obviously, AI is going to have a huge impact, and will that make people want more things that are real and genuine and come from the earth, or will it just go the opposite way? Will the fact that people have to jewelry is a craft that takes years, that people spend hours making watches and all this stuff, will that all become fully automated at some point? So I think automation and all that's obviously going to be a big deal. The ongoing consolidation of the industry, Signet just bought another company. The fact that when I started, there was something called I know Ben Bridge was in it, the top 40 sellers, right? Now you do it, and it was all jewelry chains, right? Now there's not that many large jewelry chains anymore. It's really kind of sad. So I think the consolidation, but again, there's new brands like Majori and some of these other ones that are popping up that are very resonant with the younger generation. This is less of an issue now, just because I think the consumer mood has changed, but I've always been a big believer in social responsibility and the need to operate at the highest level of ethics, and I would always urge people in the industry to operate that way, and I think that's probably one of the most important things the industry can do, because when you get into trouble, it's like the whole thing about Conflict Diamonds, it wasn't 100% fair. Like, all the stuff wasn't the industry's fault, but some of it was the industry's fault, and it's like, people aren't going to be fair. When they catch you, you're screwed. And don't expect people to be fair if you screw up. That's just, you have to always operate at the top of your ethics, or you're going to be in trouble.
That is a good place to leave it. If people want to find you on the interwebs, if they want to be supporters to the Jewelry Wire, where can they find you?
It's at thejewelrywire.com, which is a Substack. I've also started a podcast with two friends. So it's me and two other diamond analysts we call the Diamond Dudes, and that's been a lot of fun. It's basically those things. And if you're interested in my more novels, I'm probably not going to write any more novels. Well, maybe inspiration will strike at some point, but it's at robbatesauthor.com. And thank you so much.
Available where you get your podcasts and available where you get your novels.
There you go.
Rob Bates, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of The Materialist. If you like what you heard, please rate, and subscribe to The Materialist wherever you get your podcasts. The Materialist is a presentation of At Present, Matchmaker to Extraordinary Jewelry. We'll see you next time.